This is a lot more fun. There's some musica.
Live
Where's my
from
notification?
Venturing Studios, it's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
See.
All right, are we going live? Have we gone live?
We are
Is
live.
it really live?
Good morning.
You know, I think that this is just like way out of control. You know, I'm
What, that I
sitting here-
recognize that Dr.
Yeah.
Good had a haircut and you didn't?
Well, no, it's not that. It's your bangs look so amazing. I'm thinking
They
her
look super
bangs,
cute.
but they always look like that.
No, okay. You can just tell when somebody's had a trim or like had their hair like layered back up or shaped back up.
You can?
Well, you know what? You probably shouldn't be able to notice that, but you are more in touch with your
I
feminine
am.
side
I'm telling
than
you,
most
her hair
folks.
looks like her hair looks good all the time.
Okay, well, no, it always looks great, but
I don't
can just tell.
I don't know. Well, anyways, good Wednesday morning to everybody.
Yeah, JP's like, wait, what? What's going on here? What's happening?
Yeah. Did you wake up in a clammy sweat this morning? Welcome the humidity to North Texas.
Humidity 9,998
My air
degrees.
conditioning units are sweating along the
I couldn't
vents.
like my car, the whole drive in stayed fogged up, even with like, you know, the what's it, the little
Yeah, the little what's it?
you know what I'm saying, the
yeah.
things that you push that are supposed to get rid of all the fog.
Does that improve your driving or does it take away from your driving?
No, it drives me crazy when there's fog on the window. It's almost like the sections where the fog is. My eyes are drawn to it, so it's no
Taco Bueno.
I knew you were going to say it is not a good scene for me. Like
Not a
that.
good scene. Well, I'll tell you what else is not a good scene right now.
Too much sodium and sushi last night.
It could be.
because I can barely get my wedding.
You
band
ruined
on
my
and off.
transition. You ruined my transition. I had a perfect transition.
Oh well, then let's go back. Okay, so when it's foggy, it's hard for me to look at anything but the fog.
Well, and let me tell you, there's also some other hard decisions being made across the state.
There's the transition.
When it comes
But
with
I love-
when it comes to ISDs
Like that.
and
Yes.
the finances. And Dr. Be Good, she's with us
Wow.
from the Ask Dr. Be Good show.
Woohoo.
Our public advocate, public education advocate, and superintendent. Good morning, Dr. Good.
I'll tell you, it wasn't hard to pick, but there's so much going on in pub ed right now. And
Yes.
that's outside of what's happening in Austin, right? There's just a lot going on. Well, one of the things that caught my attention is the fact that, you know, we've talked a lot about finances, school finances. We've talked about how schools that are Title I schools that have the higher percentages of kids from low socioeconomic second language kids tend to need more money and have gotten more money. Well, it seems to be at the expense of some other districts, and Lovejoy is one. So Lovejoy has had to make the decision to close their elementary, it seems, unless there's a miracle that happens, because they have been functioning in a deficit. It's sort of a perfect storm that's happened. They're a small district, very small, as some of you may know, in the Allen, Fairfield, Lucas area, 17 square miles. They serve small amount of kids, and unfortunately for them, they are only 4% low socioeconomic, and so they have not had title funds. They've not gotten a lot of extra funds. But during House Bill 3's refinance and finance formula changes, what some of us didn't understand is that districts that had high economic kids or families from high economic areas, that they would actually get a loss in student funding. So they lost about $331 per student. They've been having less kids come into their elementary for the last few years. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that once the parents graduate their older kids from high school, they don't move. They stay in Lovejoy. They like the area.
Yes.
And so they are 95% built out. And so they're not receiving, a lot of the growth that a lot of other areas like Melissa, Fairview, some of them have still been getting, right? And maybe John, you can speak to the growth that you see in your area, right? It's going north. Well, right. They're built out. And so that along with COVID, where it had increased expenses, they spent $500,000 on COVID expenses. And yes, they got that money back, but it was mitigated, equaled out by the loss in funding.
Right.
And so, and they're not getting any more funding like the rest of us from the funding from the second and third streams, because they're still trying to figure out, if you saw my podcast last Sunday, TEA and the federal government, they're still trying to figure out how to get us that money without so many strings that it's unusable, right?
Right.
So, of course, you can figure out that the parents have been horrified by this, right? They just, they protested. They went to a board meeting on Monday. There were 20 people there signed up to protest. They've already got a foundation set up, and they've got $175,000 that have been committed if they will reopen, which is nowhere near the 3.1 loss.
Yeah.
Projected $6 million loss next year. And so those elementary kids will have to go to Allen schools.
Yeah, and that was my question. So is it an automatic, easy transfer, or how does that work out? Or do they take a bus? How far? Or will they be spread out amongst the different schools in Allen, or will they be in a school closest to the Lovejoy area?
I'm sure they will. They were they're going to two different schools. Let me see if I can find that. I think one of them was Purgis. Does that sound familiar? In Allen?
Okay.
Would be split up between schools, and I'm sure it was having to do with how far, the distance. So, but you know what? They're not the only ones. Capel is has a similar message. They have 14,000 students, but because of a slowdown in enrollment growth, a lot of it by COVID. We all know and have heard repeatedly that the early childhood grade kids were not sent to school, right? The pre-K kids were the ones missing for the most part in larger numbers. And so they're facing a 7.2 million deficit this year with similar deficits in the next 3 years. And so they're having to really, really cut the budget. And, they are thinking about closing their New Tech High School, which, that's a project-based high school that like what we have, and that would be a really huge shame, because the New Tech Network program for project-based learning is so effective with kids when done right. And so think of cutting a program that is so effective with kids to save money, it's heartbreaking. So that's one of those things that you really hope that that TEA and the feds can figure out a way to get districts that aren't Title I some money to make up the difference. So, and here's the thing. Some of these districts had transition grants because the legislators knew that the loss in funding for the non-Title I districts would be a shock, right, to their budget.
Right.
And so it's been a transition grant given to them, but that runs out in the 24-25 school year. So dwindling enrollment, COVID, and the transition grant going away, districts like Lovejoy and Capel, there are probably some others that we could mention, are hurting.
Right.
So, Dr. Good, I guess one of my questions is, does there need to be some reallocation or analysis of where the money is being currently spent versus shutting down schools? You've heard parents that have talked about different districts who are real top heavy, or they'll call their admin building the Crystal Palace, and they'll have 4 staff members that make up $1 million in salaries, and they're like,
and
why
car allowance and
right.
travel across the world.
I mean, does that become a reallocation kind of thing?
Oh, there's no question about it. Certainly, there is in many districts, central office can be accused of being top heavy. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, but TEA, by certain coding, TEA knows the percent spent for central office personnel versus instructional personnel. And so they keep an eye on that. And if you crossed over, I think 40%, you can get in trouble. But there's still things that can be done. And some of it has to do with cutting instructional coaches, cutting custodians, oftentimes, unfortunately, they look at elective teachers, right? They'll cut
Yeah,
it,
which is a shame.
double up, maybe
Yep.
double up on having maybe more kids in the class and having a TA help instead of, having two classes with each a certified teacher. There's lots to do, which ultimately impacts kids, especially right now. So that is something that we're going to probably be reading more about in the future as districts start settling and looking at their budgets, because most districts have to have a proposed budget for the new year between June and August. Ours is due, for example, August 31st. It's just mandated. We must have it. So they're already looking at it. In Lovejoy, and it's Puster and Hart Elementaries, by the way. That
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and they'll just reroute students, I would imagine, within the district to the other elementary
But
schools.
my concern was, are they going to have people going over to the west side of Central to an elementary school? Like, are you going to be completely, displaced from your neighborhood type style thing? So, yeah, and so then are there, Dr. Good, I'm assuming that there are schools, districts, and schools like this across the state of Texas that are going to run into the same issue?
Sure. Although most of the time, energy, and media goes to Title I schools because of the populations we serve. They're so needy, blah, blah, blah. The higher income public education schools, they have needs too. I had to be reminded back when I was helping schools that you can have kids from high income homes not know how to read because of dyslexia and needing special services and all that. And so one of the reminders from House Bill 3 was dyslexia used to not be paid to a district, even though it was mandated that we had to serve them, right? Well, they, with more money going to Title I schools, more money going towards students who are coded dyslexic, all of that had to come from somewhere. And so they robbed Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
What we're having to understand, at least at me, is that, there's really, they're just rearranging the money a lot of times. They're not adding money, they're rearranging money. And so what the legislators did is what you're saying, JP, we're taking, in a district, you'll have to take, matter of fact, in Lovejoy, they are cutting between 18 and 22 positions. Now, they did offer a package, and 35 teachers took advantage of that offer, so that helped, right? But it was rearranging the money at a higher level when you do it at the legislative level than in a school district level, right? So there's not ever the ability to add a whole lot more money to any of those pots.
Yeah, I tell you, it's been a rude awakening in the pandemic has shown such a light on education, all levels, all sizes of districts, all areas of the state, rural, suburban, urban, all of that. It's going to be interesting to see what changes are made, and hopefully what changes for the better are made, and how important it is, and parents become aware of, hey, next March when it comes primary time, you're going to want to vote, because in case that's the only, in case there's not a general election in November, there's not an opponent, that's going to be the person who's making decisions about your kid's school. And again, if your kids aren't school age, it affects your property tax value. So, it's all intertwined, and hopefully people from now on will stand up and, like you like to say, advocate for themselves and for their kids when it comes to education.
And that's what's, I'm still amazed. I've been in this business 35 years, and I'm still amazed when I look back and I think how quietly we went about our public ed life, right? Even as a teacher, even in it, and no matter as a parent, I just sent my kids to school and, interacted with teachers. Even as a teacher, though, I wasn't aware of all of this stuff in the background, right?
Yeah.
And it was,
yeah.
I became a superintendent that I became more aware of everything that has to go on in the background to run a school district. And now with COVID on top of this, goodness gracious,
Yeah.
you know, the shadows of, but it's good that we're paying attention. I feel that way. I hope other people are actually getting to the point where they understand the need to pay attention to public education and to be more aware of what's happening in the legislature around that and how it's tied to their property values. That's so important. We don't want to have happen here what's happened in Florida, and that is in Florida where you have a lot of senior citizens who are saying, I don't go to school, my kids don't go to school, they don't even live in this state, I don't want property taxes raised, and so I'm going to vote people who want to increase taxes for public education, for example, I'm going to vote them out. And so their infrastructure in Florida is suffering a little bit because the seniors who are there in huge voting numbers just don't have an interest in it because they don't know that they're going to see it, live long enough to see it come about.
Wow.
So we certainly need to get to the point where everybody's on the same page, understanding the need to keep our infrastructure and our economy strong in
Absolutely.
the future.
Boy, that's so true. Well, with that comes with a strong infrastructure, with strong, education goals. You're talking about less homelessness, less people in jail, less crime. You're going to pay. Here's the thing. You're going to either be proactive and pay for it in education, and do like the stuff like you guys are doing with truancy and all that kind of good stuff to make sure that kids have the ability to become a tax-paying citizen once they're an adult. You're either going to pay for it there, or you're going to pay for it on the other side, giving people 3 hots and a cot. Is that what you say? In jail. So where do you want to pay for it?
Like I said on the show, we cannot continue to graduate kids into minimum wage jobs, even at $15 an hour. That's still not a lot of taxes that they're going to be paying, right?
Right. Oh,
and
you're
so
right.
If the kids are in $15 an hour jobs in the future, then we're not going to have the booming economy.
Yeah.
Texas.
So, there's trade school, there's all kinds of stuff, but people are we've got to make sure there's that emphasis to put the importance on that.
Well, and it's my job to teach, right? I'm teaching adults. And so Sunday we're going to have one of your favorites on, Miss Plano. Landry's going to come on. I love
excellent.
These young ladies who not only have empowered themselves, but then they've gone a step over that and done something else. Like in her case, she's written a child's book. Yep. And, I was very happy. I had Mallory on. Miss Capel, I believe, who wrote a child book during COVID. Yep. And I bought the book, gave it to our counselors, and I sent Mallory a picture of our counselor.
Love it.
And she was just thrilled. And
that's so great. Oh, I love that. And both of their books are getting strong accolades. I judged a spring workshop Miss Texas competition portion a couple of weekends ago, and a number of folks were talking about their books and also the importance. And it's interesting to now see how and this is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but see how more and more authors of children's books, and you've touched on this on your show and on our show, are putting animals into the main characters versus people, because any kid of any race with any kind of family background can identify with a unicorn or a horse or a cat or a dog or a mouse. And then you don't have to worry about these kids who feel like, well, this book doesn't feel like me.
Exactly. And so I want to focus on and celebrate this young lady who has done so much at a young age. And again, I congratulate people who get books published, because it's so difficult to do that and to actually follow through and get it done. Even though it's a little bit easier to self-publish, it's still the follow through. Many people have a book inside and they just never get around to doing it. So we want to celebrate her. We also have lots of pub ed headlines. And I don't know if you know this, but May is Mental Health Month. So we'll start touching on that Sunday.
Yes.
So much around mental health that people just need to keep bringing it from the back to the front, and just be told over and over how okay it is to seek help. Right. And that's huge. So anyway, thank you for that. Thanks, guys. Awesome. And we'll see you Sunday.
Sounds good.
See you Sunday. Thank you, Dr. Good.
Good stuff. Oh, good stuff. Pun intended. Get it? Good. Dr. Good.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff, yeah.
Wow. But Kathy. That was funny. Okay.
Crickets. What's Grogu say? We got to hear from Grogu.
We've got to hear. And I think Grogu keeps falling over.
Yes, you're scaring him.
He's sleepy.
You're scaring him.
He's like, I did not have coffee this morning. Wham.
Oh, he even gave you another one of those moments of, well, here's the thing, right? A lot of parents are going to be clamoring for a budget workshop where if you're shutting down one of my schools, you better be bringing the numbers.
Boy, howdy, I better
and
see.
you better be transparent.
Well, and here's and again, then you just ding, ding, ding. That's the big word there. Where was the transparency ahead of time? There should have been transparency all along. I always tell people when it comes to your taxpayer dollars, it's the same thing. So if you go to a government entity and you can't easily figure out where does this money go, where's this budget line item, what was cut from the budget, what's been added to the budget, who's making what, it's the same thing. If you can't figure that out readily and easily, or it's not made available to you at all, then it's the same thing as going to your bank and walking up and saying, hey, I want to see my statements from the last 3 months. And they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, we can't give you that. Again,
Right.
It's your money. So then my question is, where was the transparency ahead of time? And I don't know. I know I've heard a little bit about Lovejoy, and I'm going to know we've got Ann and a couple other folks who are on the feed right now mentioning things of where this started and could have gotten into trouble. But it seems like parents would have been clamoring a long time before this happened, because you've got to have some kind of inkling, just like if you've got like a in your bank account, like your checking account, where it says, oh, I've got mine set, like if I ever get to a certain level, boy howdy, it's going to say, hey Kathy, all this is cleared and you've only got this much left.
Right.
Well, so is there not some kind of a system that kicked in? And I don't know if you know about the Lovejoy situation.
I do.
I know a member of the crew
and I'm walking, I tread lightly.
Yeah.
I'll let Ann do the man's work on this, as they would say. Okay, Ann, you can hit me for being misogynist now. I want her to go, don't say man's work, But no, seriously, Ann can do the heavy lifting on this. Ann lives in the Lovejoy School District.
That's what I've assumed,
Sharon does as well. I know that for years there's been a lot of questions under its previous leadership on how money was being spent, how things were being purchased. The big call back in the day was that when the state came to the school districts back, I want to say mid-90s, and they didn't want to properly fund, and they lowered a percentage on a rate that they were able to collect on that would help make up the differences normally when a school district would be in a deficit.
Okay.
They promised that they would make up for it. And the previous superintendent said that the state never did, and they never changed what they were doing and how they were funding this certain rate.
So at some point, did people try to change that?
No. Well, supposedly school boards were, but citizens didn't know enough about it. Again, if you're going to shut down one of my schools, you better be coming with some budget numbers and some transparency, and I better be seeing where your funding agents are and why it is we've gotten to this point.
I feel like there should be it should be a open book as far as what happened, how you got to this point. I'd be devastated. I've got friends who now, most of them, moved in, and their kids are either in high school, finishing up, or have finished up high school, because I'm that old. But these are people who left homes, didn't necessarily, and this is back, way before the pandemic, didn't, maybe get what they felt their current home was valued at, had to move into a more expensive home in the Lovejoy area because they specifically wanted to be in their schools. I know I had several friends who paid, I think it was $10,000 a year to be in a Lovejoy, even if you lived outside of Lovejoy ISD. So I had some people who lived in Allen, but they paid the extra $10,000, which is, you're practically at that point, you're paying for private school tuition kind of a thing.
And Lovejoy,
I'd be concerned.
Well, and here's the other thing: a lot of people have paid tuition to go to Lovejoy.
So they paid the $10,000. Yeah,
over the last couple of years, and
then you start saying, where does everything go?
Well, and again, that's why I'm saying you better be coming with some transparency at a meeting at the local cafeteria. Talking about other forms of and I'm trying to think of a good transition here.
Because yours this morning was good.
I know it was, right? But where children are being, sometimes not thought of first. And
Which
children are
in an
suffering.
ISD, how is that not literally the reason an ISD exists is for, hey, the kids.
Let me take another drink of Jack and Coke.
Yeah. Send it on over my way. Okay. No,
Okay.
but seriously, that's,
Well, I agree.
come on, JP. I mean, really?
Well, the Senate has taken up gender affirming medical treatment in Senate Bill 1646.
Oh, I have not heard about this. Okay, enlighten me, please.
I'm going to enlighten you. So, if your child is wanting, and at 5 years old, I don't know how we know this, but wanting to become transgender, and they do a gender affirming medical treatment, it will be considered child abuse under the Texas.
Oh, I did hear about this. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now,
Texas
if that's
Senate bill.
Sorry, I was taking it a different way. No. I know. I absolutely know what you're talking about. Yep.
So, at first, the bill had a great deal of support, great deal of movement. It's kind of stalled. Of course, Austin's full of protests right about now. The transgender flag colors, by the way, are light blue, light pink, and white.
Okay.
They have a flag.
I did not know that. Okay.
You, me, both. I didn't know they had a flag either. The Texas Senate tentatively approved a bill on Monday, 18-13. Again, that's pretty sizable. That until the child turns 18 years of age, anything that had to do with transgendering.
Well, the hormone therapies, the
Right.
therapy where you give children, and I've heard, I was watching some national talk show just the other day, and a transgender person who did not transition until they were well in their 20s, just let the record show, who's advocating for kids as young as elementary school to be able to have their parents. I mean, they're trying to move this at the national level, and that's going to be a big, Biden's going to be all like thumbs
Right.
up on that. So they were talking about how these kids should be able to do the hormone therapy, the non-hormone therapy, stop all this kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, and you know what? And if they decide to go ahead and start taking hormones again, it's reversible. It's no big deal. It's just like, basically they were trying to compare it to taking like supplements or vitamins or something. And I'm like, no, giving your kid elderberry, black elderberry and magnesium and multivitamins and some extra vitamin C during a pandemic, those are supplements.
Right.
My concern is, and my mom, who's a breast cancer survivor, when they went back and linked, because there was no breast cancer history in the family, this was, my mom's a very healthy person, and she got this at a relatively young age, and they linked it back because she had had a hysterectomy very early, right after my brother was born. She got on hormone therapy. They went back, and because of the breast cancer that she had, the type she had, they linked it to most likely, you can never say definitively, most likely it was the hormone therapy. So I'm sitting here thinking, you're going to jack with a baby, just a child's hormones at a young age. How do you know what that does 10, 15, 20 years down the road? What happens if this kid is just going through a phase and then they decide to start the hormone therapy, you stop it, whatever, but they don't get back those years of fully developing. Let's say you're a female and you say, no, I want to be a male. Well, then do their breasts ever develop appropriately? Do their ovaries and their uterus develop, their fallopian tubes, do those develop so they could actually have a child someday, become pregnant and bear children? Is anybody not worried about the fallout from all of that? I don't know.
No. They're just marching forward because it's the new trending thing. It's what's hot
the
on
hottest
Twitter.
Thing to, there you go.
And again, here's what has not happened yet. This is what I think is very, very interesting. Nobody in the medical community has backed off from saying that transgendering is, in fact, a mental health disorder.
Boy, and when you say that to somebody who's in that community,
oh gosh,
or
yes.
who supports that effort,
your LBGTQT.
Oh, because
racetrack.
I've gotten a tongue lashing on the other side of that, and I said, I'm just trying to state a fact. I'm not judging anything.
I'd have gotten in their face.
And then this is one of those things.
Good thing they didn't come to me.
Hey, if you're old, you know what? If you're over 18 and that's your gig and
knock
that
yourself
floats your
out.
boat, rock and roll.
Whatever.
But
At
we're
6?
talking children. I didn't let my kids pick out what they were wearing when they were age 5 and 6. I said it was like my daughter would be like, well, can I wear this and this? And no, you cannot. It's winter, and that is a bathing suit, so you will wear what I have on your bed.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that at 6 years old, or 7 years old, it's 32 degrees outside, and Katerina's going, can we go swimming?
Yeah, I know.
Sure.
But it's sunny.
So, but you know what? But we can make a decision. Well, I've decided I'm not a girl anymore. I'm a boy at 6 and 7. Texas Psychology Today says that children know their sexual gender identity by the time they're 6 or 7 years old. I don't agree with that. I've read so much that, again, first of all, that this is a mental health disorder, number one. Number two, how does a 6 or 7 year old know their sexuality when, again, they can't discern between sticking your finger in a light socket or not sticking your finger in a light socket? I mean, I don't understand how we could go with that.
Think about this. Okay, you've got a lot of kids who are super picky eaters. I remember, when my kids were young and talking to my mom friends who had kids the same age, they would say, oh my gosh, your kids ate that, and I'm like, well, I have a rule in my house. You have to at least try it once. Before you say, nope, shut it down, kind of a thing. And they're like, oh, all my kid wants to eat is macaroni and cheese, potato chips, and chicken nuggets. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not going to eat that for dinner every night. So my kids are going to have to learn how to have a different kind of palate. So then I guess that would be my question. Do you let your kid, if they want to eat ice cream for dinner, do you let them eat ice cream for dinner? Hey, you know what?
Right.
You like those hot tamale peep flavored things from Easter this year.
Right.
I made a mental note. I'll be getting you some of those next year. So, okay, you like that? Well, why didn't you get to eat that for breakfast? You had a breakfast burrito, but you know what? Why didn't you get to eat hot tamale peeps?
Right.
Yeah. Hey, why can't you feed that to Carter? If he likes them, why not? At some point, you've got to step. If your kid says, I don't want to go to the doctor for their annual well visit, do you say, all right?
Well, in this world, yes. And so, again,
help me.
Well, there is no help for you on this deal. I'm telling you.
Does this make sense to you at all?
No. The Public Health Committee also met on the medical care bill. And again, what it's becoming is a party vote. Democrats are voting to allow them to transgender, begin the hormone therapy, begin the suppression treatments prior to puberty. Why not let a kid at least hit puberty to think about it? Even our attorney, Justin Nichols, who represents many, many, many of these folks, has said,
who are older,
right,
transgender folks who are over 18.
Right, who has said, well, he won't represent them younger than that.
No.
He's told the family.
He said it's not responsible.
No. And that's it. I mean, it's not responsible.
So you're not. And Justin is a very open-minded individual. And he's. So it's not like there are people who are out there who are saying, oh, no, you can't do this at all. Again, it's just wait for the appropriate. Okay, so you know what? Both of my kids, I think, were wanting to drive by about the time they were 10 years old. Was that a good idea? Were my kids demanding it?
No, not a good idea. But, and along the lines, and I had something and I've lost it. I'm hoping to gain it back here. But in regards to should we allow a child to determine if they want to transgender or not. And there was something that we don't let kids do or make decisions on, and I cannot remember now.
Cigarettes?
No, a tattoo.
Oh,
because tattoos are semi-permanent now, right?
Yes.
So
pretty permanent.
Well, tattoo removal now makes it a little bit easier. But,
yeah,
but why don't we allow kids under the age of 18
to get a tattoo?
But we'll let them change.
That's a really good point.
Their genitalia.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Help me out here. So if a kid at 7 says, ooh, I like Superman tattoo on my arm, please. That's why we got the fake tattoos. They can wash them off, right?
Yep, the henna tattoos.
So are we going to run them down to a tattoo shop and say, okay, ink my 7-year-old?
Yeah. My 7-year-old and again, when you're young, you grow so rapidly. It's interesting. I have a scar on my wrist from my dad was dropping me off at the bus stop one morning. Of course, I turned over to wave at somebody and slammed my arm in the car door. Shocking, I know. And it's so interesting because it happened to me when I think about Dad, I think was it 2nd grade, where that where that scar started off as an injury and where, because of my skin growing, it ended up. So, okay, so if we're sitting here, you think about a tattoo. So somebody's going to get a tattoo on, their above their heart. Well, okay, that's not going to be that's not going to be the position it's at, because your skin is rapidly expanding, rapidly growing, rapidly stretching. Yeah, that's a good point. Are you going to let your kid get what are those things they do, like modifications, and some people can make themselves look like a lizard.
Right.
Or like a snake. You get people who they cut their tongue and then they do the horns and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff under their skin.
right.
So if your kid says, I identify as my bearded dragon, are you going to let them get some kind of surgery at age 7
Interesting
that
gendering on
allows
that.
them? Yeah.
That would be interesting.
I don't know. I mean,
Hope somebody else is doing the same thing, or they won't have a partner.
yeah,
Just saying. One of the other things that comes out is that if they were to pass this, also be looking at Senate Bill 29.
Yeah.
That again is passing through based on party lines. And of course, to remind you, Senate Bill 29 would prevent males who are transgendering to female from participating in female sports.
Yes.
What the bill says is it would revert back to your birth certificate and what your birth certificate said in regards to your sex. The push now, it's interesting, coming out from the left is, well, it's got to get past the governor. So let's say the House passes it, the Senate passes it. Well, the governor is not likely to sign it. Look at the governor from Arkansas and the governor from Kansas. They didn't sign the medical bill nor the athletic bill. But yet Abbott in 2019 gave credence to a father's claim that his ex-wife was abusing their child by allowing that child to go through the transgender process. And Abbott had tweeted back then that this is going to be referred to the Attorney General's office and to the Texas Department of Human Services, because this doesn't sound right. So I think if these bills did hit his desk, he would sign them.
Yeah.
I would sign them.
I don't see where there's a big question.
I mean,
about
if
that.
we're going to allow children to make adult decisions about their body, permanent decisions,
life
because I don't think
altering.
the surgery is reversible, or at least nobody's figured that out yet.
And if somebody knows out there,
Let us know.
Let us know,
but
please.
They don't. Then we need to move driver's licenses back to 10. We need to move joining the military. I'd love
smoke
to see.
up, Johnny.
Well, I'd love
Have
to
a
see.
cocktail.
I'd love to see a 7-year-old running around with an Uzi.
Yeah, I mean,
Put them in the Army, gosh darn it.
well,
Send those kids to the front line.
If we're making permanent decisions about our body, and again, and my heart breaks for people who are in that situation. And it's interesting, more and more are. My daughter literally just was sending me something that a friend of hers back from junior high transition. Now, granted, this person's almost 22 years old, had the full support of their family, but you would have never known that back in the day. And so I wonder, it made me think, I was like, wow, I wonder if this kid was struggling even when they were, star athlete and on, student council representative with my daughter and all this kind of stuff. So you wonder, and you've got to think that's got to be tough, because we all, middle school, heck, just being a kid's hard. And I think it's harder even now because of, social media. I think it's way harder. JP and I've celebrated many a times the fact that we were kids in the 70s, and that was when we got to grow up, when you were still rolling around in the dirt outside, and there was no social media. So I think it's tough, and so my heart breaks for anybody who's in a situation where they have a hard time with any kind of mental health issue or well-being issue. But at some point, we can't let the latest whatever social justice cause let people lose sight of things that can medically harm someone and that might have irreversible damage, or that might, again, we look like vaping. We don't know,
Right.
We know it's bad. It's way worse than even cigarettes are. But, and I'm not saying go smoke cigarettes, just saying, so vaping, we don't know. They're saying that, my gosh, 10, 20, 30 years, there may be god-awful things. It may be one of those things that we've got all these people dropping dead by the time they're 50 because their lungs just couldn't handle it because of all the damage. And so we've already got enough bad things out there. So, and people are trying to regulate that, and nobody's busting chops on that. But we're going to let somebody go, I don't know, we're going to let somebody... do something that we do know that influx of hormones can cause damage, can cause harm, can cause possibly cancer. I lost because of some hormone therapy I was on when I was trying to get pregnant with my son. It caused such a bad cyst on my ovary that I lost an ovary. So I'm just sitting here thinking you can literally have this, because you're doing the opposite of what Mother Nature is doing to your body.
Well, and
You know?
again, for me, this isn't about gender recognition. It's not about sexuality. It's about a child.
Yeah.
And we don't allow children to make major life decisions before 18 years of age. And so this is a major life decision, and a parent shouldn't be allowed to make that decision for that child. I mean, this is changing their life forever. You know, it's like a tattoo. There's no consent to walk into a tattoo parlor and say, hey, I give parental consent for a tattoo.
You can't
It doesn't
you can't do a
exist.
tattoo under the age of 17 in a legit tattoo shop. Now,
Right.
not saying that there aren't kids 15, 16, 17 years old walking around with tattoos that didn't go get it from a friend's garage or something. I really, and I would love for somebody from that community who is supportive. We would love this. I'm speaking for JP too, who is supportive of giving kids hormone therapies, hormone suppression therapy, whatever it takes to start transitioning a child at the young age of elementary school or middle school. If somebody is supportive of that, please let us know. We'll have you as a guest on this show. And we will be very respectful. I'd love to
Always
hear from somebody who
respectful.
thinks that's okay.
Well, and again, here's the other part of this. It is still considered a mental health, mental illness issue. That hasn't changed. The community has not changed the identification of this as a mental health issue or mental illness issue. And so I question that as well. When that starts to change, then let me know, and we can start talking about it from that perspective.
Yep.
But I have to deal with what I have now. Teresa makes a point. She says that less than 1% regret their transgendering. My only argument there would be, first of all, we're way too early in the process of transgendering. And really, when it's become something that has been actually begun to be noted and to be tracked, number one. Number two, and I mean, again, I guess number one, number two are the same thing. We're too early in to know at 25 when the brain finally stops developing, because we've discovered that brain development is 25, 26 years of age now. We're way too early in for someone who is transgendered in the last 5 years at the age of 7 or 8 or 9 to know, are they really not regretful of it? Number one, did they know they were making this decision and understood the ramifications of that decision at 7? And if they can, then why aren't we letting them run the country? Because clearly the adults can't get their shit together to run the country. And so if you can't, hey, if Mark Levine and my boy down in Houston can say I'm letting loose.
No, but you're passionate about this.
Well, I'm letting loose
yeah.
on this because my thing is that these are major life decisions. I cannot tell you how many times at Christmas you go out and you buy your kids toys and they recycle through those toys in less than 48 hours and they're ready for new toys. I mean,
yeah.
Help me out here. This is a permanent, lifelong decision that we're allowing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds to make. Even my very gay attorney friend, who is like a brother to me, I love him to death, says it is wrong to allow somebody younger than 18 years of age to make this permanent decision.
Right.
So why not wait? Why not go through the process of growing up, going through puberty, getting through adolescence, and then
getting
as
your diploma.
Right. Well, you know what? Diploma, GED, trade school. To me, that doesn't.
But, focus on education. Focus on the things you need while you're young. Yeah.
Focus on growing up. And then at the point in time when you become an adult, you make the decision to do that, then do that. I'm not saying ban transgenderism in the country.
Nope.
I'm not saying ban transgenderism in the state of Texas.
We've said a million times on here, if you're over 18, knock yourself
yourself
out.
if that's
You're
what
an
you
adult.
want.
Whatever floats your boat. Well, and it's interesting. This is unfortunately this is an older article. This is all I could pull up right now, but I know there are more recent ones, which I need to find one of those. But just when you talked about Teresa making that comment, I remember hearing this, and the person who I saw interviewed on this national show, who was advocating for kids being able to do hormone therapy or hormone suppression, they even mentioned the suicide rate, and this was from an article in 2019. It said the suicide rate for transgender people is nearly 10 times the national rate.
Say that one more time.
The suicide rate for transgender people is nearly 10 times the national rate. Isn't that significant?
Well, we discussed that back when we had the Marine that had transgendered.
Yes.
And we had all the servicemen that came on and stuff
Yep.
and talked about that, and about how serious that was. And the transgendered Marine even said, has had so many, thoughts of committing suicide and killing himself.
Well, because this does become a mental issue with and this goes on to say, according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, more than 40% of transgender men and women in the U.S. have attempted to take their own life. That's, to me, that's the staggering figure that we should be looking at. And then we decide, okay, so this is an issue that we have, just like we've talked about, 7-year-olds attempting suicide during the pandemic. So you've got to tackle that mental health component just as strongly as you would a physical thing. So the parents who are wanting to have their kids take hormone therapy at a young age, well, then you know what? Doggone it. Have you had your kid in counseling to make sure that even if this is at the end of the day, they're 18 and they say, Mom and Dad, I still want to do this. I feel so strongly about it. I've been saving up my money from my part-time job and I'm going to be doing this. And within a year, your son will be your daughter or your daughter will be your son, whatever the case may be. Again, over 18. But here's the thing. In the meantime, are they taking their kid to counseling to make sure their child is not also suicidal, which you've got, people who are in that community who will say, we've got a higher suicide rate.
Right.
Or at least a suicide attempt rate.
Well, I'll
so
tell
are we
you.
tackling the mental health part of it?
Well, and we need to, but we need to continue to tackle other issues that face Texas.
Yeah.
And one of those issues is constitutional carry.
Yes.
The House has done an amazing job of getting it through,
Yep.
passing it on to the Senate. The governor would not come out and say one way or another if he would sign a bill into a law if it were to hit his desk. Well, his silence is over.
Oh.
He has now come out and he has said that he would absolutely sign permitless carrying of handguns.
Yeah, I assumed he'd be in favor of that.
No,
That's a public statement. When was that made?
April 27th,
Oh, okay.
14 hours ago.
Okay.
Hot
off the press.
Hot off the press. Seriously. Abbott had never been clear on whether he would allow something like that or not, but he has now. He has come out and he has said that he believes that Texans who want to carry handguns in public without a license should have the ability to do so. Of course, Dan Patrick and his group in the Senate, not on the same page as the House, says he does not believe he's got the votes to be able to get something like that passed. With the governor now signing off on this, basically, it's going to be interesting to see how the Texas Senate handles the bill. It's interesting this session how many bills that have come out from Republicans and Democrats both, where the House is on board, the Senate's not. The Senate's on board,
and the House is not. Yeah, it's hence the reason we've got both bodies.
Right.
So somewhere there's a balance, and that way we, the people, have a better opportunity of our voice being heard. State senators get elected every 4 years, state representatives every 2 years.
Right.
So there may be a difference because of election cycle time and things of that nature, and you may be, feel differently if it's an election year for you. Which, by the way, Senator Paxton is still voting. She sends her apologies. They're in the middle of a vote right now, so hopefully we'll get her next week. It's going to be tough as
Well, it's
we
getting
progress. I mean, they start at 8 a.m. and
Well,
it's gavel down.
It's getting busy.
Which it should be, and we want it to be. We just want good
actually,
decisions
I'll
to
be
be
honest
made.
with you. I'd rather they all sit down there and twiddle their thumbs. I wish they
Don't
weren't
change
busy. Yeah, leave it
anything.
alone.
Well, that's why everybody's like, don't you hate it? I can't believe, Kathy, you're like Miss Pro, get involved and have your voice heard and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, because I've got friends from other states who are like, doesn't it drive you crazy that your legislators only meet every other year for 6 months? I'm like, oh no, that's the best thing on God's green earth in Texas, besides the lack of state income tax.
Yeah. So bottom line is, though, it's going to be interesting to see where the Senate comes down on a lot of these bills and where the House comes down.
Yeah, and we'll be watching.
Yeah, and it'll also
We'll
be
be
interesting
watching.
to see if they trade off. Okay, we'll sign off on the constitutional carry bill, but we want you
But
to.
then you need to,
We want you to pull back on 29.
Yeah.
Senate Bill
Yeah.
29. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Again, the governor has given the green light. He is going to sign a bill that would allow for permitless carry. And so we'll see where it goes from there. But again, Texas facing a lot of issues this session. The budget, education.
Yeah.
You're hearing about local ISDs that are shutting down. And so
that's jarring.
yeah, the key thing that
That's
Kathy and I
jarring.
always do say is get involved and get a
Amen.
hold of your state legislators and let them know what your thoughts are.
Well, and then also, and especially you're talking about ISDs, and since Dr. Good started our show off with this, Saturday is election day in the state of Texas for your municipal races. There are, depending on where you are, you've got school board, your ISD, Board of Trustees, city council, mayoral, bond elections, a number of bond elections, especially for some of these ISDs. So you may want to see, are you paying for something you really don't need? Do you need a fancy art center, or do you need, 19,000 new swings when barely anybody's been on the swings for the last year and a half? So anyway, so get out there and vote. If you haven't, early voting ended yesterday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., May 1st, state of Texas. Go do research online, find out who to vote for, exercise your right to be heard, because unless there's liquor is on the ballot, you've got less than 10% of the people in your city or your ISD are going to be deciding who their local representatives are. And they make daily decisions that impact us. What happens if the trash doesn't get picked up? It's going to be like, once a month instead of once a week. Well, you haven't earned your right to gripe unless you get out to vote. Also, I know in Collin County, we've also got the Collin County Board of Trustees for Collin College. They've got 3 seats up in that on that board as well. So get out there, get educated, and
Get informed.
vote.
Be a part
vote.
of it. Yep.
Vote.
So we're going to leave you with this. Joe Biden, Jumpin' Joe, Eddie Haskell
We were
Biden.
having such a nice time.
I know, right? But we got to talk about Jumpin' Joe,
I
Eddie
can't
Haskell
wait.
Biden.
And tune in Friday to see, after the State of the Union address tonight, what 3 new adjectives JP has added to Joe Biden's name.
It's coming.
Friday will be fun.
It will be. Jumpin'
will have
Joe,
like
Eddie Haskell
10.
Biden today. He has appointed the Texas Sheriff Ed Gonzalez out of Harris County to now lead the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department of Homeland Security. So he is the new director for ICE.
Will he be on the Zoom call with old Kamala Harris on the 7th?
Yeah,
Okay.
probably not.
Somebody do something before the 7th.
Yeah, he's been the sheriff
Help
in Harris
us.
County
Help
since
these kids.
2017. He was at the Houston Police Department before then. One of the things that Gonzalez did do that we can tie anything to his thoughts on immigration right now is he did opt out of a federal immigration program back in 2000 and I want to say 17, 18 now, where he said they didn't have the resources to be able to determine someone's ability or someone's immigration status on site. And so he didn't back out of it because he didn't believe in it. He didn't back out of it because he was a
So it's a financial
Crystal
logistics thing.
City. What do they call them? Sanctuary
Sanctuary
City.
City, yeah.
He did it because it was logistics. They didn't have the people and the manpower to be able to sit there long enough to wait to determine if they had or did not have the proper authorization to be in the country. So it'll be interesting going forward. Jumpin' Joe, Eddie Haskell Biden, again, has chosen the Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez to lead ICE. I mean, at least he's a Texan.
Yeah.
I mean, at least there's that.
We
I
shall
don't
see.
know.
Well, you know, and
Well,
somebody who
Mayorkas is
would
gonna control
hopefully-
that, so.
Yeah, hopefully, you know, again, we just
And Mayorkas is an idiot.
it is a humanitarian crisis. How the left, who always is saying, "Oh, we're always worried about the children," how can they let these overcrowded, you know, inhumane, you know, ways of life go on for these kids who have come from across the border?
Yeah.
And just ignore it.
Well, you heard what I talked about on Monday, $3.2 billion just to take care of the children that are coming across the border this year. And the fact that they're being held 122 hours, which is not 72 hours.
No.
And it's unacceptable the way they're being kept. I think it's
Yeah.
funny. I'll let you guys go down there and see it when I got it all together. Well, thank you, Jumpin' Joe Eddie Haskell Biden. We appreciate that.
So we've already got another. So Judy Mark says, "Bye bye Biden."
Yeah, bye bye Biden.
Add that.
I wonder if
too.
we can sing that. Bye bye Biden.
No, because that's one of my favorite
Jumpin' Joe
songs
Eddie
from
Haskell.
a musical.
Bye bye Biden.
Do
No?
not change the words out to Bye Bye Birdie.
Why not? Bye bye Birdie.
Because
No, I just
Bye
did.
Bye
No,
Birdie.
bye bye Burden. No, the Justin. What's his name? Justin.
Oh, you're
Canadian-
doing Bye Bye Bye.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about, was that
yeah.
NSYNC?
Oh, is that NSYNC?
Yeah, it's NSYNC, or was that Justin Timberlake's band? Was it no? Was that NSYNC or was
Amen,
that
Greg Rusk. I thought it was Justin Bieber.
No.
Was it not Bieber?
No, not Bieber. You're thinking Justin Timberlake's song.
Oh,
Bye,
Justin
bye,
Timberlake.
bye.
Was it him?
Yeah,
No?
yeah. It was his band. It was his boy band.
Justin Timberlake,
Whoever
right?
was that NSYNC?
I don't know.
I get all those.
Okay.
Was that okay?
Nathaniel
Thank
says
you.
it's NSYNC.
Thank
or
you
Che
very
Guevara.
much, because I was like, okay, you know, now because I left off with New Kids on the Block, and then I wasn't into any boy bands after that. But no, I thought you were trying to change the words to "Bye Bye Birdie" from that musical with Anne Margaret. I'm like, do not jack up a Broadway
That's
musical
classical.
song.
Give me a break.
Come on.
I've never done that. That's classical.
We don't mess with Broadway
No,
show
we mess
tunes.
with Bye Bye Biden.
Because you know that was part of what they did, that little dance. Yeah, there
Who
you go.
did that?
NSYNC.
Okay, yeah, okay. Not Bye Bye Birdie.
Yeah, okay. Girls who are younger than my age,
I
y'all
think
know what
I'm
I'm
hearing
talking
the
about.
music. I think the music is playing. What's Grogu say about today's show?
I don't know. Let's see. Grogu was
Let's
a little
see.
sleepy earlier.
Oh, very
Okay.
favorable
Good
today. All
times.
right, well, thank you,
Good
Grogu.
times.
Hey, Grogu. You know
It's
how
like our Magic 8 Ball.
Yeah,
This is our version
yeah.
of the Magic 8 Ball.
Hey, Grogu, you know how you were eating the eggs of those little frogs?
Oh,
Why
I don't
don't
like
you-
to. I don't like to talk about that part.
Oh, I
of the
bet you
show.
don't. Hey,
I like
Grogu-
to ignore that.
Grogu, turn to the unicorn and eat the unicorn.
No,
Grogu,
no,
eat the unicorn.
no. They are friends.
Grogu,
They're
eat
friends.
the unicorn.
They are good friends.
The music better come fast, Grogu, because I'm going to encourage you to eat the unicorn.
Y'all have a blessed day.
And when you come back, the unicorn will be half eaten by Grogu.
And there's that. So we've got the lawyer show tomorrow.
We do.
So tune in. What time? Noon.
Noon to
tomorrow.
Everything you want to know about Jeremy.
A replay of Ask Dr. Be Good show from Sunday if you missed it.
That's
you can
right.
catch that tomorrow as well. And then we'll be back in on Friday.
Judd keeps telling me congratulations. Judd, what are you congratulating me on?
You won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Did I?
I don't for all
For
the
calling
nicknames
out
you have for Biden.
Jumpin' Joe Eddie Haskell Biden?
Love y'all.
No, be nice to my unicorn, Judy Mark said. No, Judy, Grogu is going to eat the unicorn. Everybody have a blessed day. Have a blessed Wednesday, Thursday. We'll see you on Friday.